Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans, welcome to Talking in Ovals. How's everybody doing out there on this Monday, July 1st of 2024, episode number 95? Dave, you're back. Hi.
I am. How are you?
How was Vegas?
Vegas was cool. The better part of the trip was the Grand Canyon. What an amazing, beautiful place. When you walk and you see it for the first time, it's breathtaking. It is absolutely amazing. I recommend everybody get out to the West Coast and get out there and see it because it's life-changing. It's absolutely surreal. And the only bad part was trying to make up with the time difference so I could try to watch these U.S. trials because that might be the greatest U.S. trials that I've ever seen.
They were incredible. And, you know, the athletes showed out as they always do. And I think we're seeing a springboard from Worlds, just people hungry to just get better. And I think, you know, yeah, we're really strong everywhere. We'll definitely we'll talk about trials a little more.
And I just want to say quick, kudos to NBC. Great coverage. It's almost as if they listened to our show. We got mini boxes during commercials. We had Snoop Dogg. We had Terry Crews trying to break things down in layman's terms. I just thought it was great coverage. They showed every event. And if you wanted to get specific, you could go on to Peacock and you could watch every single jump, every single throw. So kudos to NBC. And I hope FloTrack can keep the momentum going when they get these. Although I think this stuff's still going to stay with NBC. So.
We'll try to keep momentum, and then maybe Michael Johnson's league coming in the wings, possibly pushing him to start being better and covering.
It's an exciting time for the sport.
Yes.
Things are on the upswing, and it helps that this is the best U.S. team I feel that we've ever sent because we have people in every event that can compete and can hopefully bring home some hardware.
At least medal, definitely. So before we get into all the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. If you're watching on YouTube, X, Facebook, hello to everyone. We appreciate you all out there. And I just want to direct you to last week's show. Dave wasn't here. He tried to log in a few times from Vegas. We tried to get him in. It didn't work. But we had on Marissa Kelsey. She is a pro pole vaulter, and she competed at this 2024 Olympic trials, and she did what she set out to do. She wanted to become one of the 12 best pole vaulters in the country and qualify for finals, and she did. She set a nice big PR. Her one going in was 4.48, and she got in there and did a 4.5. So really pumped for her. She did great. Before we get into showing love to everyone else, I want to talk about the early registration still going on for the 3rd annual River Rock and Run 5K. My buddy Adam Nalvin, he puts it on November 16th, Saturday, November 16th when it goes off. It is a 5K. You can either do it solo and go run the 5K, or you could do teams of 2. Each of you run about 1.5 miles. All the proceeds go towards Mom at the Notion food banks, and you get some beer, you get some food at the end. So definitely go do it. Go have some fun. I know all runners, once we hear beer, we become incredibly motivated. So that is a lot of motivation for our runners. So definitely go over there and show some love. I want to bring in our guest before we give out some shout outs to the other athletes. I want to bring him in because he's been hanging out long enough.
Yes.
Score. We started 20 minutes late, but we're happy for everyone that is here. That is my fault. My daughter wouldn't go to sleep. Anyone that's a parent out there understands what I'm talking about.
I get it.
The beauty of doing a podcast after your kids go to sleep is sometimes they don't. And you run into this. So we're going to bring him in. We are pumped to have him on. He's someone I know Dave is excited to have on because
hell yes,
arguably the best and one of the best athletes ever from your school and arguably the best runner ever to come out of Toms River South.
Time-wise, it is hard to argue, yeah.
It is hard to argue. He is Chris Marco. He is a Toms River native, a Toms River South alumni, Notre Dame and Monmouth alumni, middle distance coach or former middle distance coach at Emory University, 2019 to 2023, current head cross country coach and middle distance coach at Wittenberg University, starting his 2nd year. Chris, what's going on, brother?
Just hanging out. Had a long day of recruiting, a lot of texts, a lot of phone calls. That's the summer grind. So living the life.
Yeah, coaching doesn't end even when it comes to summer, right? That just continues to go, and we'll definitely touch on that. So I just want to bring you in because I didn't want you hanging out backstage, but I want to give a few shout outs here to some of the athletes that we've had on the show, we have to start off with Eric Holt. Eric had a absolute tragic thing go on. He ran a really good semifinal, arguably, he ran a PR, 145 low, and he made it on time. And the elation was, even the NBC broadcast brought up how awesome it was. He was hugging Shane Cohen and everything like that. And then in the live interview with Sidious Mag, he finds out that he gets DQ'd. And
I guess he stepped off the track in the first turn.
But a lot of us speculated that it was because he was rocking at the start.
Yeah, because he's a pumped up guy.
Yeah, and then it ended up not being that. It ended up being something legitimate that you really can't appeal. Like that is an ironclad rule. As
horrible as that was, he still had an amazing meet because as we've been preaching for almost a year and a half now, Mr. Eric Holt is a sponsored athlete. Thank you, Puma, coming through when it mattered. We love you, Eric Holt. You've been a tremendous guest on this show. Could not happen to a better guy. Him and his whole team getting that Puma money to be able to go and travel and compete and do what he keeps doing. I could not be happier. That made my whole trials. That made my whole year. That made my whole point of doing this podcast because we have been preaching this on socials for a long time. Not that we had any part of it, maybe if we did, but
we did a little bit. Cool.
Amazing.
We were happy for Eric.
Amazing. He's sponsored.
And he has an insole sponsorship as well that came with it. I think he even has one more. So he got the sponsors came rolling in, and
he looked good in that orange, though.
He looked great in orange. We also want to give a shout out. Josette Andrews came in, ran a good 5K, prelim, semifinal. The finals, I think it was just the fact that it was her second race of the year, and that was a fast 5K. And
Ellie,
you have St. Pierre and you have Franny over there.
Franny,
I mean, those two women were going to be probably 1-2 anyway, so the race was for third. Mostly, you had Parker Valby there. You had so many, Kara Schweitzer, who ended up getting the spot. Carissa Schweitzer was a fantastic runner. So it was always going to be tough, and Josette is one of the best 5K runners in the country, but I think it was just nursing the injury all throughout the season, coming in, trying to run 2 hard 5Ks, and it wasn't a championship meet 5K. That was a fast 5K. So
yeah, there was not a lot of championship style racing at this meet, which was kind of cool. They were going for it.
Shout out to Elena Bruckner. I believe, she finished in the top 10 in the country.
I think
Jordan Geis with 2 just near podium finishes, 4th in the shot, 5th in the hammer, and just came in, worked his ass off. Hope Bender didn't have the meet she wanted, but went out and competed in the HEP and, became one of my daughter's favorite athletes. I just want to tell this story real quick. And I emailed Hope. My daughter and both daughters got punished. They were fighting, and I was like, "You're not watching any TV. Daddy TV time." So of course I'm like, let me bore the hell out of them. Let me throw the trials on. And then Hope's on. So I'm like, let me watch Hope. And I was like, Daddy interviewed her. And she's like, that's awesome. And then every time she's getting every cheer, go Hope, go. And I was like, okay. And Hope gained a big fan. So maybe that made, something.
That is the best punishment ever.
Yeah, no, we can't punish her. My wife turned on HGTV and she's like, "What's this?" and started watching like
the House Hunters. Nice.
Yeah, basically. So she's unpunishable at this point. Tanner Berg went out, competed his ass off in the hammer. He did great. Capers Williamson. Can't say enough about Capers. Finished second in the Jav. He's not going to the Olympics because probably not. July 7th doesn't come around, but all indicators that world rankings probably aren't going to put him there.
Even though he qualified from the U.S. standpoint, he was second, but you have to also qualify. You have to get the Olympic standard, for those of you who don't know. It's a certain time or distance that the Olympics require. And if you don't have that, you have to be in the top 42 of the world rankings. And I believe he's just going to be out of that. So unfortunately, he doesn't get to go, but he still is the second best jab thrower in the whole United States of America. So,
and it was his final throw that he did it on too. He went from 4th to 2nd, which was awesome. We got to give a shout out Clayton Murphy. Ran a really tough final race. It ended up he got kind of in bad positioning, and that 800 is fast.
Listen,
a 142 wins it in 2 143s. Like
he ran a 144.8. Like that's his best time of the year. Clayton, for all you who think that Clayton's done, he's only 29. He has a lot of run left. So,
and he's a 142 guy in his career.
He'll be back.
He's there.
He'll be back.
Matt Ludwig ended up finishing 5th in the pole vault. There was just some really, even without Casey Lightfoot doesn't go in there, but you have guys like Chris Nelson. You have other super talented guys, and I know Matt kept his head high. We mentioned Marissa Kelsey, and now we have to mention Justin Stafford because we are absolutely elated. Justin is one of the nicest guys we've had on this show, and Justin is more than likely going to go to Olympics with a third place finish in the hammer.
It sounds like that will get his world ranking up to about 35, so he should be going.
He threw a PR, I think, in 3 of his throws at this event, and I mean, you can't say enough about that. If he didn't do that, he'd have no shot. If he stayed near his PR, he would have had no shot finishing third or not. But Justin earned his right to go to Paris, and we are pumped to say, we've interviewed Olympians, we've interviewed gold medalists, but we are, for all intents and purposes, going to have a person in Paris competing that is interviewed on this show. So that is just huge, and we take all the credit for that, Justin. It has nothing to do with your coaching, your hard work. It's because you interviewed on here. Congrats, Justin. We are absolutely pumped for you. So we did our housekeeping here. Now, Chris, you've been sitting there nice and quiet. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about you and what you're doing. And like I said, we're pumped to have you on. I'm a Manchester Township kid. So, even though it wasn't us when you were running like a freaking banshee, just having somebody from our general area doing what you did in high school, honestly, it made me pumped just to be around it and things. It was like awesome. And, you go off to Notre Dame, which is awesome. Come home to Monmouth. We'll talk about all that. First things first, I want to ask you, when did you get the spark to become a runner? Because most people use running as a punishment. When was it the time where you realized running's what I want to do? I'm going to dedicate myself to this.
Well, to be frank, I was just bad at hand-eye coordination sports. I wasn't satisfied by team sports. I wasn't, and not that track's not a team sport. It very much is once you mature and learn more. But I was always very competitive, always wanted to win, and stubborn, and got frustrated. And so when I couldn't catch a ball or throw a ball or play nice with others, I got frustrated. And so those sports were not fulfilling for me. I didn't do well with them. I didn't like them. Once I got into middle school and I realized I can just run as hard as I want and I can be the master of my own destiny, there was no looking back from there. I knew that was the route I was going to go because I got to control it all, and what I put in is what I got out. But other sports just didn't scratch that itch for me growing up. I just got frustrated. Middle school, I did enjoy wrestling in 7th grade. I liked that a lot. It's more physical sport. But at that point, I knew that running is going to be that path forward. Fast forward to now, I do like to play club rugby, adult league with some friends. Just a fun thing.
That's awesome.
I do enjoy that. It's just something new to do that's not running. But back in the day, the ball sports didn't do it for me. I needed something a little more aggressive, a little harder.
So, question I think everyone wants to know: do you throw it in the man bun when you're playing rugby?
Yes.
I feel like
it is legal to pull hair, so I don't want that hair. So I tie that stuff up there, so I don't want that pulled.
It is that I didn't know it's illegal to pull hair. But I mean, I guess in football it is too.
It is legal in the NFL. Yeah.
So it's like, listen, if you want to make it a part of you, boom, we can grab your jersey, we can grab your arm. It's it is what it is. So, have you had your hair pulled yet in rugby at all? An accident?
I have. It's been by accident. I mean, I play in like a men's club league, so we're all there. It's still full contact, like a
beer softball league, right?
But yeah, it's for fun. We have fun afterwards, but it's still full contact. So if you're going out there pulling hair, you're probably gonna get beat up by somebody.
Nice.
Not me, the smallest guy on the field. But
so you went to intermediate. Was it West South. Still then, or what? Oh, intermediate South.
So they just built intermediate South. I think I was in like the 3rd year. Intermediate South was open.
That was not even a school when I was young, because I went to intermediate West, which then became intermediate North when they built intermediate South. But anyway, so you knew once you got to middle school that running was going to be something that you wanted to do. So how did your whole middle school process go? Like in 8th grade, were you one of the guys in all of Ocean County, and how did that whole process go? And then did you have any interaction with Coach O'Leary prior to going to high school? Like, were you there for that first summer training as a freshman, or did you wait until you actually got to school freshman?
I didn't have much interaction with Coach O'Leary prior. I met him a couple times. I joined the Times River South High School team on some runs going into my freshman year. But prior to that, I was just with the middle school team. And I do have to give a shout out to, you might think that a middle school coach could seem insignificant, but I had such good coaches pass me along all the way up to where I was that, I mean, those middle school coaches made a huge impact on the work ethic they prescribed and all of those sorts of things. So up until that point. I mean, middle school, started figuring things out in 7th grade. 6th grade, I walked in my races. I didn't know what I was doing. It was hard. And then 7th grade, I trained a little more. And no one coached us in the off season. So brilliant 7th grader, I decided I was going to get better. I was going to run this arbitrary length loop, which I went back and measured years later. It's like 3.5 miles. And every single day, I just tried to run it faster than the day prior.
It's great. That's really awesome training in there. Yeah.
You know what? So you're just running all out every day. But then by the time I got to 8th grade, I was one of the top in the county. We went 205 in the 800. Wow. Went 450 in the 1600. And so, had a pretty good 8th grade campaign.
So you're preaching to the choir in terms of great middle school coaches, because Dave is one of the better middle school coaches we've ever had at Manchester Township. Was at the Manchester Township, and he helped. Now the middle school program has been a legitimate program, since Coach Picton and stuff was down there and things like that. But Dave was a part of that group, and you would ask plenty of people from that time when he was coaching, and I think a lot of them would say, especially the distance group, like, if it wasn't for Hyatt being there teaching us, things like how to work hard, how to properly run a little bit, not to sprint, how to do a distance run, like those little things. If you get those tidbits in middle school, it makes it significantly easier, and it makes your coach's job easier in high school, right? Because now you're getting this kid that not only runs fast on the track, has a semblance of understanding of how to train and what a training program looks like. And that makes it a lot easier jumping into XC if you're coming in there, because it's like, I tell you to go on the track and give me mile repeats. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, oh, okay, Coach Hyatt had us doing 800. So this is just, we're stepping it up a little bit. We're not going to do miles in middle school. We're doing 800 repeats, quarter repeats. Like, so, you're preaching to the choir with Dave there, because Dave was one of those great middle school coaches.
Well, thank you. So anyway, you are at High School South. Obviously, I went there, ran for the great Mr. Mark O'Leary, to this day, one of my idols in life. So what was it like your time there? Because he was only doing cross country, correct, for your 4 years there? Or was there a time where he was still doing track and then Coach Deckard came in? Because you had the opportunity to run for 2 wonderful coaches. I was just curious how that worked, and was there a big transition from cross country to winter season because of their different coaching styles? Because I was fortunate enough where I had one coach for all 4 years. So I'm just curious how that went and how that transition was.
Sure. So very different coaches, but they worked so well together that it didn't feel like a transition at all. So I had O'Leary for cross country all 4 years, and then I had Coach Decker for track, indoor and outdoor for all 4 years as well. And it worked like that. But in terms of transition, it didn't feel like much. They worked so well together. O'Leary always with the funny O'Learyisms that I can't even repeat a lot of them because
no, you can't.
Different time.
Those ones live on in our memories of times of.
I remember staying at practice till like 7 o'clock at night just to hear him and Hef talk in the weight room, just tell stories that I've heard 10 times, and they were great every single time.
So, Chris, really quick, just think about it. As a coach now, thinking about just the things that went on then that probably, you can't repeat now, and make how different of a world it is, even from you graduated high school when?
I'm not that old.
You know what? It's like things have changed.
Just imagine.
Coach probably wouldn't say half the things you heard O'Leary say.
Just imagine O'Leary and Hef in the 70s. That had to be wild.
Oh my God. They were probably smoking on the track. Even if they didn't smoke, you just mandatory smoked in the 70s. Like, didn't matter if you were an authority figure, you had a cigarette. Quickly, I want to get to some of our comments we got here.
Oh, we have some comments.
We have some comments. So
Tommy Sippy,
Marco, that hair. Do you want to explain the hair real quick? I know a lot of people, they remember you from high school with, the crew
clean cut,
like regular clean there. And now you look like the lead singer of Red Hot Chili Peppers back in the day.
Really nice compliment because that's my favorite band right there.
Oh, there you go. See, is that what you were going for?
That's what you get on talking.
The hair, I wish I had better brightness in here. I don't know what's going on.
No, you're good. You look beautiful.
It's so during COVID, I just started growing it out. I went through it, in college too. I'd grow it out decently long, and I'd cut it short, and I'd repeat and keep doing that. But over COVID, I just decided I'm just going to keep this thing rolling. Just going to keep it going, see how long it can go. I've had it trimmed a few times, but after getting through some awkward hair stages, as a single man in a city of Atlanta, the attention from females went through the roof with more hair. I'm just going to be honest. I went from invisible to I had more prospective dates, if you will. And so I kept it. And so that's why I grew it out and kept it. And then the sun turned it kind of blonde, and nobody believes that I don't dye it. So now all my athletes think I dye it every single day. I got people asking me where I got my highlights, and I got to tell them I just work outside.
I got it from the sun.
Yeah. So can you bleach it? So you just one day bleach it and just go like straight up like M&M bleach. Yeah,
just pure white. But it is a little inconvenient. I would like to get it cut shorter at this point, but I do have a lovely girlfriend. Her name is Selena. I've been dating for about a year now, and she loves my hair, and she says if I cut mine, she'll cut hers the same length, and I'm not willing to take that sacrifice. So for the foreseeable future, it's going to stay longer.
That's a challenge, dude. Just go bald and see what happens.
I want to take that risk.
And then here's the thing. You know you have a winner if she takes the bic out of your hand and is like, honey, help out. And you're like,
ooh. It's great commitment, but I don't know if I want to take that risk.
So I'm on your quest because my daughters want to see what my hair looks like when it gets out to my shoulders. Now, here's a married man who my wife hates every moment of this. So I'm just doing it. And she's like, what is that? I'm like, the girls want to see it. Like, I'm sorry. You know, they take precedent. And real quick, before we jump back in, Carl Torchia, Coach Torchia, says Chris Marco, Ocean County meet record holder, 152.33. Then he also comes back with Chris won the 8, 16, and 32 at Ocean County champs, which
yes, he did. It was at Jackson Liberty.
Absolutely ridiculous. So, I'm not a historian. Dave, you're more of a historian than I am. Has that ever been done before?
I'm sure it has. I think Pete Hess might have won them all. Maybe. I'm sure Rich Morris had times where he. I'm sure that
it's got to be an elite club though. It's got to be.
It's great.
That 3,200 was still to this day. If I had to like rank maybe the top 5 most painful races I've ever run, all of my races ever, that 3,200 is in there. I don't know where among the top 5, but it's in there. I've never felt a burn like that in my life. I didn't think I was going to run it. I didn't even bring distance spikes that day because we weren't planning on it. And then Decker's like, well, you run 32. I don't have spikes, thinking that I'm getting out of this thing because I don't have spikes with me.
Not with Coach Decker, you're not.
Find a friend that has the same size. So I'm like, dang, I got to borrow my friend's spikes to get in there. And that was just 8 laps of misery and hanging on and finding something at the end. I remember my sister ran track at the time. She was at the finish, and I just like collapsed in her, and I was yelling. She's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" It's like my legs have never burned that bad before. But it's worth it, I guess.
So that was Kyle hurt then, or did you guys go 1-2?
No, there's Noah. I'm blanking on his last name, but he's from Lacey.
Jacobs.
Great kid. No, Jacobs. Yes.
That is John Flood's grandson.
Yes. So no Jacobs. Great kid. Love him a lot.
Sorry. Great run. Nephew, not his grandson. Nephew.
And
sorry, John.
Yeah, he was second. He pushed it hard the whole way, and I feel bad because I just sat on his shoulder and outkicked him in the last 200. But that's all I had. That's all I could do. But he got second. I think Kyle was third that day because Kyle is still a sophomore.
Yeah, he was. So I want to get into a little bit. So as a freshman, you know, like you're kind of the guy, and then all of a sudden you get like a Kyle and you get Pete. What was it like having those guys to go to battle with? Not only an XC, but you know, you guys ran a 10-16 DMR. What was it like being part of a whole team rather than just the Chris Marco show?
It was so fun, and I was looking forward to it so much. Even with all the individual successes, when I think back to those moments, the Penn Relays, the New Balance Nationals, all the times I got to do it with my boys, because that's way more fun. And it wasn't just a group of talented guys. I mean, we had to hold each other accountable every day, all summer. Kyle and I got the whole team together at his house for team runs, and we ordered pizza. We even spray painted on the roads, probably illegally, mile marks and arrows for our whole team to go run together. So there was a lot of planning to do to get to those points, but we pushed each other pretty hard and built a pretty nice culture with the help of our coaches. And so it was so fun. It wasn't like there's any sort of negative competitiveness whatsoever. We pushed each other very healthily. And Kyle, being the distance guy he would push every run. Like I ran kind of fast. I probably ran like 6:20, 6:30s on average. but he's cutting it down sub-6 every run. But I'm a stubborn high school. I'm not going to tell him anything. So we would just go quiet and I'd hang with them and we both get better. And so it was never a time I was going to say, Kyle, slow down. Didn't happen. Right. It just went through him. So in that kind of way is just one example how we pushed each other to get better. And then the speedier stuff, I got to tow him along. And then we got to bring other guys like Brett and Peter and some other guys along the way and bring everybody up together.
Yeah, so there is nothing better. I mean, it's a Toms River South tradition. We've had some great individuals like Chris, but we've always prided ourselves, at least under O'Leary and Heffernan and probably Decker and the new regime too, is relays. Like if you look at Toms River South, they're 4x8. You don't run 756, you're not getting on that top 10 list. It's just not happening. It's not happening.
Which is absolutely nuts that you guys have that many fast times. I don't know if Manchester's ever had a sub 8. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think we've had. Maybe close to some, but I don't think we've ever actually had that. So, Chris, I want to ask you, and Dave, you could probably speak to this as well a little bit because, you know, being from Manchester, I don't know as well the Toms River rivalry, right? Like there's 3 high schools, and 3 high schools that have a pretty damn good tradition at athletics, right? And it seems like, especially in track, you guys all kind of take turns as who's going to be the premier program. What was it like basically leading at that point and, you know, early on beating a lot of them individually, but then coming in and having that team and like being able to walk on the track, and that South is the feared Toms River right now, like not the Giant N, not the script East, South. Like, is there a pride when you're going in there and looking at all the other Toms Rivers? Like, we know we're going to come in and kick your ass because we are the best Toms River right now.
Yeah, and it was like the gift from having to get crapped on for 3 years and just get, you know, beat up by these other teams. And by the time I was a senior, we got to really beat pretty much all of them because we still had dual meets. And, you know, we don't prioritize dual meets, but it was really nice to go in there and win all the dual meets for the most part because, you know, we had rivalries with East and South, but they weren't that strong. Really, the rivalry that mattered was North, and God, we hated North a lot. So finally getting to the point where we can beat North in some pretty dramatic fashions was just like 3 years worth of hard work paying off right there. But they had great athletes on their team. I still know some of those guys, very, very great athletes. And the dual meet my senior year, it's kind of a funny story. It was coming down to the 4x4, and I wasn't in the 4x4. We didn't plan for that. I actually ran the 400 hurdles, 8 crap in the 7th hurdle. I fell hard. I fell so hard, got back up, finished. I'm bruised up. My hand hurts like heck, and I'm all battered. But then we had meet to run, so I ran the 8, the 16, and the 32. I'm like, all right, I guess my job's done. And I'm sitting on the infield with no spikes on, and they're on the 3rd leg of the 4x4. And Decker's like, we need you in there. I'm like, oh, I'm not ready. That guy's in there. That guy's anchoring. And they're coming around the backstretch. Well, I've only got like 30 seconds at this point. He's like, and then he throws his hands up and he does a Decker tantrum and is like, well, the best guy on the team's not going to be on the 4x4. Okay, like I've got my best guy bailing on it. I was like, God damn it. So I've got 2 guys on the team helping me tie my shoes on. I'm like, faster. And I literally sprinted from the infield of the 50-yard line. I pushed our guy off the track as I'd move, simultaneously grabbing the baton. And then it was neck and neck with North all the way to the line. And somehow I pulled something out and got it over them, and we won. And it was that was one of the crazier moments.
So wait,
what was the officials?
Whoa. Are you telling us that you ran 5 events?
I think so. If it wasn't 5, it was 4. I'm trying to remember.
I love it.
Definitely 4.
I'm not sure it's legal, but I love it.
That's insane. That's awesome. And considering you ran every distance event, the hardest sprint event in the 400 hurdles, and then came back, you know, I'd imagine adrenaline was just kicking at that point. Like you had sprinted once.
It's a Toms River North rivalry. Like times mean nothing.
But I think it's better that you did it against them because like Toms River North is never a slouch, especially in the 4x4. They have some,
especially this year. Holy cow!
This year their sprints are incredible, and they have a fantastic overall team. So it's like North is, like I said, it is in times to shine. Like right now, North is the top Toms River right now, and which
is funny because Marco was there in the mid 2010s, right?
Yes.
when I was in school in the mid 90s, North was, we didn't even worry about them. It was East. Like we were Ocean County champs in cross country. My freshman year, we got second East. My senior year, second East, and then one sophomore, junior. So it was all high school East then. I mean, it was East, it was Jackson. So it's just funny how like we didn't even worry about North. But I mean, the only reason why I worried North is because my mom taught there, so she would have some of the kids in her class. But it's funny how when I was in school it was East, when he was there it was North. I always said if Tom Shiver had one high school, I don't know who would beat him.
It would be impossible. But you know what the issue would be? There would be attrition, right? Some of the kids that were maybe late bloomers that would come in, probably would never come out for the team. No. So you would have those type of guys that would just sit there, and your guys that are coming in and shocking and running a 156. Right. That would be a strong part of you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't get that guy that started out at 215 because it's 10,000 kids. You guys have you guys would quite literally be close to 10,000 kids. Like you'd be as big as Rutgers. Like it would be insane. Like now, hopefully that never happens because then we might as well just quit sports in the shore area. Like no, I hate that idea. You actually.
I don't like it either. No, I don't like it either.
North up into two schools at this point. There's too many damn kids at North.
North could probably be two good-sized Group 2 schools.
They could really be two. They'd probably win Group 2. They trade off. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, no, it's always fun to hear. Like I said, I've said it before. When I was there, it was all North and East. South was kind of on a lull. They had good runners. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But in terms of team power, there wasn't the team power. North was a juggernaut. East had some depth. Listen, and it's always funny just how it trades.
South was always good in the 30 years that O'Leary and Heffernan were there. They always found a way to they had times where they were really good, but they were never bad. They were always
they weren't bad.
Competitive. All right. So, Chris, your junior year, I remember Bobby Cannon sent out this big thing, and there were probably 20 or 30 of us old ass alums from Tom River South who trekked all the way out to, I believe it was South Plainfield or Old Bridge or one of those places. And there were like 30 people there.
Whichever one it's at.
Old Bridge.
Yes, yeah, it was Old Bridge. Because we all wanted to see the great Chris Marco from Tom River South run. He has a chance to win me a chance. So we all went out there, and holy shit, did you give us a treat. Junior year, you win me a chance, 1,600, 407, a meet record. That stood until, which we'll get into in a little bit. What was that feeling like, being like, I'm the fastest person ever run at meet, and I still get to come back next year? What was that like for you? How did you celebrate with Coach Decker? Was there a call to Coach O'Leary at any point in that? Like, how did that whole process go, and what was that feeling?
I am a little blurry on the exact details of everything that went on, but what I remember most is it was just think about your absolute wildest dreams and then them coming true. It was the most amazing moment I could have ever wished for. And it was like down that final straightaway was all of the hard work I put in coming together in one final moment. And it was, just like that. It was the most amazing dream come true moment. And I vaguely remember I looked over towards the right side of the finish line. And I saw the entire Toms River South alumni crew cheering. Yep. And that made me feel like, oh my gosh, I've got such a support network. And then Decker ran up and gave me a hug, and that never happened. So we shared a hug, and my parents were there. I saw my parents, and my parents were going nuts and crying a little bit. So excited. And just like all of those things happening at once was such a dream come true moment. And then I also, after that kind of wore off, I had the moment of like, I made it. Like, I don't have to worry about college anymore. I know I'm going to go to college, and I know I'm going to go to one I want to go to. And so that was a very big weight off my shoulders. Like, I earned it. I finally got there. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And then the next thought after that was, man, how do I win this next year? So all of that happened in like the following 10 minutes after the race. So I'm going to enjoy this, but next year is going to be hard. Then it was.
How long after you crossed did you know that you're in 407? Was it instantaneous, or was there because was that your first time under 410?
Yeah. So my PRs, I was just on a tear that season. So 2 weeks before or short conference, I ran 414, which is a PR from 416. And then at the group meet, I ran 412, which is a pretty big PR. Yeah. And then from 412 went 407. I hadn't a clue what the time was. I didn't see the clock. Someone came up to me afterwards and was like, that was the meet record. And I was like, cool.
I didn't even know what it was. I had no expectation, right? Like going into that.
I had
You're
no
just
idea.
trying to win the damn
about
thing.
the time whatsoever. And so I was like, that was a really cool bonus. And I took it from Joe Rosa, who's a legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Out. Even more icing on the cake. So that was very cool. I had no idea it was going to hold for as long as it did.
So I have a question for you. What was it like coming into the meet with expectation, right? Like Dave said, he got a big call. The South alumni were there because they knew that there was a real possibility. Your time coming in, 412 was one of the top times in the state and was going to be one where it's not you're just a guy that made meet of champs. You were right there, a person that
we're not all driving there for like a
exactly
429. I got 6 at groups. No offense to all those people. You guys are wonderful and I love you, but you're not having a whole alumni team come out there.
So what was that?
We all knew that there was
a possibility.
Something big that was actually brewing. Yeah.
So what was it like going in there and towing the line and like your warm up and everything and knowing that, I'm not just here to run because I made it. I'm here because I have a legitimate chance to win. Like, was there extra pressure? How did you handle that? Because I imagine as a high schooler, that was the first real big moment. Like you've had big moments before, but this is it. This is biggest meet that you're probably going to be at for a really long time until, college and stuff.
Yeah. So this is 100% going to just sound real cocky and arrogant, but what made that season so special as opposed to any other season I had was I was so fearless of anyone and anything. I did not care who you were or what you did. We got on that line. I was like, I won't lose. And if I do, I'll bleed. And so I went through the whole season with that type of just hunger and fearlessness. And even when I lost, I accepted that I lost, but got right back up and was like, still doesn't matter. Still going right to the top with this thing. And so I tapped into something that season that was extremely special. Somewhere I unlocked something. I'm not sure how. Just the conditions were right. I unlocked something that allowed me to just be absolutely fearless in every race and every day that I had leading up to that moment. And so because of that, I rolled into that meet having a very healthy respect for all my competition, but knowing I'm going to execute my race plan. And if I do that, it is very, very likely I'm going to win. I could get upset, but I'm fairly confident I'm going to win this thing. There's a few other people that can do it, but my confidence at that point was unshakable. And maybe it was just part of being on the rise fitness-wise, maturing physically, but also not having that much life experience. So just pure ignorance
helps. It really does.
Ignorance allowed me to be fearless. It didn't matter who I was going up against.
Look at Quincy Wilson now.
Yeah.
He's not scared of anything,
My teammates still make fun of me to this day. I was in a race against Edward Cheserek and I was like, he's nothing. I'm going to take his ass down. And that was so foolish. He dropped a 401 on my noggin. But that's how I went into that race. And that's why that whole season was so special.
Yeah. And I tell you what, that's a hard thing to ever get back. If you have it once, it's just go for it.
It's very fleeting. It's fleeting.
And you took full advantage of it. I mean, so really quick, I just want to get something quick and then we go back. So how did you end up at Meet of Champions this year? Was that pre-planned, and was it because they knew we got some really fast cats and this record might go? Were you approached prior to, or was it just randomly that you were at the meet? Oh, let's have Chris Marco hand out the medals after his record was broken. It seemed a little too it was all pre-planned, but then I've heard other people say, no, it was just all random. I'm like, no way.
It is pretty funny. I had no idea who was racing. I didn't know they were so good. I didn't know that they had a real shot.
Cheserek all over again.
I was spending time in Atlanta, and I was going to fly up, and I was going to make it a recruiting trip and also visit my parents for a few days. So recruit at the meet, talk to some high schoolers, kind of get the word out about Wittenberg in New Jersey, kind of recruit the home state, if you will, and use it as a trip to also visit my parents. And so I was like, well, let me go to the Meet Champs. Haven't been back since I raced here. And I start getting texts the night before from college teammates hey man, there's a good chance your record's going to fall. I'm like, they say that every year. But whatever, they say it every year. I'm like, hopefully, but maybe not. So I'm sitting there in the stands and I say like 4 kids go out in 2 flat. I was like, oh, they're going to do this.
Now that,
No, they were serious.
some of the best kids weren't even there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
like, other kids
crazy.
weren't even there. And
So
once it was 2 kids coming through at like 3:02,
Yeah.
I was just sitting back and watching that thing go down. Because at that point they were racing. If it was 1 kid coming through in 3:02, it's really hard to challenge yourself like that. But 2 of them, I'm like, this is fantastic. It's just a race at this point, and that thing is definitely going down. And
How
they crushed
excited
it.
were you to watch it? Like, 'cause, you know, like it's so.
I mean,
funny,
it was
some
awesome.
People are bitter, and then there's other people who are like, "That wasn't that fast anyway. Go ahead and break it." Like, you know, like so.
It was damn fast. They're just faster.
Yeah, I was.
You know, like,
I was more than happy to see the record fall.
yeah,
It was very fun. And then the whole part about me handing out the medals.
Yeah.
So a good friend of mine is a coach at Rowan University. Is Eric Dubois. He's one of the coaches there. He's like, "Was that the record?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Was that your record?" Yeah. He's like, "Man, you should get on the infield and hand out the medals." And I was like, "Oh, that's funny." And I was like, "Wait a second. You think they'll let me?" He's like, "Why not? Go ask." So I got a wristband from one of the coaches that year, one of the high school coaches, and I kind of like faked it around my wrist because it was torn, just kind of like flashed it. I weaseled my way onto the infield. I went up to the guy who was handing out the medals, who used to be a Toms River South assistant coach, and I knew him. So I was like, "Hey, man, long time."
What are the odds of that? What are the odds of that?
Yeah. So I haven't seen him in a decade. I was like, "Hey, can I hand out the medals? I just broke my record." And then he checked it by another guy, and he's like, "Yeah, sure." I'm like, "This is amazing." So I absolutely just weaseled my way into doing it, and it was so special. Like, this sounds crazy, but being able to hand out those medals to that new crop and that new future was almost as special as breaking it in the first place. I mean, just getting to see those guys and knowing what a path they have ahead of them and kind of handing off the torch. I'm telling you, that was as special as racing the thing myself.
Well, did they tell them who you were? Did they know who you were?
No, they announced it.
I imagine they announced it, but before that, did any of them have an idea of who you were?
Probably not.
So they're probably like, "Who's this guy? I don't know."
Why is Jesus here?
Yeah, why?
Tell me this guy doesn't look like a distance runner.
No, but the funny part was that I was up in the booth announcing the meet for Flow Track for the 100 and the 400 hurdles, which was right before that. And I'm like, "Is that Chris?" And someone's like, "Oh, Chris Marcos here." I'm like, "Chris Marcos here? Like, that's freaking awesome." I'm like, and then it was just so funny that that's the meet that your record actually got broken and that you were there. Cool moment for you and for all those kids too.
Yeah, I love the fact that I read something that the Meet Champs is going to move back to the old schedule.
Yes, finally. It's been a topic on this show for a long time. So anyway,
and
back
quickly,
to
I
you.
do want to just give one more shout out. The past 3 years, the Meet Champs have been screwed up. The past 3 years, New Jersey athletes that are there have shown out and put a whole bunch of top 10 results in the nation, keeping it as one of the nation's top meets, a meet that, you know, you won, Chris Marco, when it was still a very national caliber meet where the best of the best actually came in.
One of the only few states.
Funnily enough, it was off the episode last week with Marissa Kelsey, who's from PA, that I said something about Meet of Champs, and she's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's where all of our, you know, where you guys kind of stop at what we would consider groups, and you have like 10,000 state champions. We figure out who's the actual best. Like, we bring all of our group champions. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, parochial 1 and 2, and they all come together, the top 6 of each. Boom, they get in there, they wrestle it out, and we have 1 state champion per event." She's like, "I would have loved that." I'm like, "Yeah, every state would. Every state should do it." But I thought that's a really cool tidbit. So yes. Back to you.
So, Chris, you are, you mentioned earlier how running that 407 really, you kind of knew it took off a lot of pressure. You choose Notre Dame. Yep. What went into that choice? And then talk about your journey there and then how you ended up back home at Monmouth at the end. And then maybe talk a little bit about comparing large school versus a smaller school and what are the pros and cons maybe of both places. And
I also want to know, what were some of your other options besides Notre Dame too? Like, we know you went to Notre Dame, but who else was recruiting you, and what was kind of your top 3, and what was the, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back there?
Right. So I'll start there on the college decision, and then I might ask you to remind me of the other parts, because I can just go
it was a very long.
You know, So the college decision, it was Notre Dame, Duke, and Arkansas, actually. And I knew nothing about nothing. I didn't know where Notre Dame was. I had no idea it was in Indiana. I didn't know what schools were good. I didn't know what bad. I didn't know anything. So I just was like, someone will recruit me. And that's how I went about my recruiting process.
Which is probably the best way, because then you don't get all crazy in your own head.
God. That's awesome.
And Notre Dame was one of the lots of coaches reached out, but Notre Dame was one of the ones that stuck and reached out a lot. And so that was the first official visit that I took.
Yeah.
And I loved everything about the team on my visit. The campus was very beautiful as well. It was fun to go to a football team, but what really drew me there was the team culture. That's why I picked Notre Dame. It was all about the team culture. They rode the Goldilocks zones of really caring about being competitive and running and being a family and doing it together, but also having higher academic rigor.
Yeah, Notre Dame's is like Ivy level in terms of academics. Like there's no question that they are, your specialty spots are right up there as respected. Your schools of like education are as respected as any around the country.
Right. And so I had good grades in high school, and I could use those grades plus running to get into a better school. And so that's like the one little thing I did know about schools is like I should probably go to one that's higher academically ranked.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I went to my visit at Duke University, and
another fantastic school academically as well.
School, amazing campus, of course, and amazing academics. I think they're always ranked in like the top 10 academically.
Yeah.
And fantastic guys there, very nice coach as well. But from that experience, I didn't get the feel that they wanted to be great at running as much as Notre Dame wanted to be great at running. And I wanted to be a great athlete. And I think these guys were like, we're going to work as hard as we can, but at the end of the day, we're going to prioritize academics first. And that's kind of what you're supposed to do, but that's not what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to be a great athlete.
And for them too, being in the ACC, like that's kind of ran through Florida State and some of the other, Clemson's fantastic. And like some of the bigger, like Duke is good. They have their standouts, but there's just fuller teams in the ACC, and that's kind of a tough spot.
And now Duke's on fire. So it's not to say that
Duke's fantastic now. Yeah, they did.
That's what I felt from my visit. And then I had a visit scheduled for Arkansas, but I kind of knew at that point I was going to go to Notre Dame. But I met the Arkansas coach. He came and had Italian food with my parents and I at my house. And
nice.
It was a great experience. I regret canceling that visit. I don't regret going to Notre Dame. I regret canceling that visit because I think I would have really liked it. I really wanted to run for Arkansas. But academically, I was like, let me pick the one that's in between, and that's going to be Notre Dame. So I canceled the visit out of respect for the coach. I didn't want to waste his time, even though I really wanted to go there. Yeah. And I still see that guy, and we still talk about the Italian food that we ate that day.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
Coach Buckman from Arkansas is a cool guy. Awesome. But that's how I landed on Notre Dame. I really didn't know much, and I went with the one where I felt like the culture was strongest, and I felt that at Notre Dame. And those were my three main choices.
That's awesome. So you're at Notre Dame. How was that different from high school? I'm sure it's a big step up. So what was that whole process like? And then what eventually led to your decision to come back home and go to Monmouth? Yeah, so there are so many things I could talk about Notre Dame, right? But I'll condense it into most interesting ones or important ones. I had three different coaches at Notre Dame, which led to some instability, and I have nothing bad to say about any one of them. But it's just when there's turnover that much, you can't get in a rhythm. No. And it's tough. It's tough on the athletes. And
we've talked to so many athletes here that relationship with your coach is almost as important as the training plan. And, because especially in running, you need a confidant.
That's why some high school seniors that we now talk to, they are waiting until their senior year, even later, because there's so much change in college coaches that they want to go and run for the coach that they met, and they want, that is supposed to be there. So there is that. We have heard that there is so much change that it's hard because you want to run for a certain person.
Yeah, definitely.
Freshman year was just all about getting my butt kicked, and I was okay with that. We had like 3 sub-4 guys on the team. And my coach at that time was older guy and very old school. And so my other teammate and I, I'm great friends with to this day, we just got thrown in the sub-4 guys workouts. We were good, but we were still 410 guys. And so I didn't finish a single track workout my freshman year. I just got blown out the back every single time watching my teammates drop 153s in workouts. And I'm like, good Lord. So that was hard because I was getting demoralized and I'm getting blown out every single workout. So that was tough. And then
what was it like having the seniors and juniors that are like, hey, it's going to get better, man. Just keep working, keep fighting. It happens to all of us. Like, it'll get better. Were they kind of supportive in that sense, watching you guys?
Those were my role models. Yeah. So I still keep in touch with some of them to this day. Those guys were fantastic. They helped us along. They made sure we understood, like, you're going to work really hard, but it's going to be all right, man. Like, don't worry too much. They just got blasted in every single training session. Like, you got to be all right. And they carried us through. And that's really the reason I chose Notre Dame, is because the culture of those guys, I really wanted to add to that culture. But that's what that was like.
That's awesome. So you continue to progress. Your freshman year, you're getting your ass kicked. Mm-hmm. Talk about the rest of the time, because you had some accomplishments over at Notre Dame, being a part of an incredible 4x8 team, having, the Irishes your senior year, their fastest 1500 meter time. Like, you were no slouch. You ran really freaking fast. If I'm not mistaken, you were damn near, were you at 150 at Notre Dame, or right near? You went 150 at Monmouth, but you were damn near it over at Notre Dame. Yeah. So it's like, you were no slouch of a runner whatsoever at Notre Dame. You definitely kept their legacy proud. What was it like the rest of the time, as you went from being that freshman getting his ass kicked with all the turnover, but still becoming an incredibly accomplished athlete?
Yeah. So I was never not motivated to run. I always wanted to be better. And so going into sophomore year, I looked at all my upperclassmen teammates, because since there was so much coaching turnover, I didn't have like a coach any one summer. So I just did what my teammates did. And so I had a lot of upperclassmen, 5K, 10K guys I looked up to, and they ran a lot of mileage. And I'm like, at the time, I'm durable. Like, that's one of my strong suits. I don't really get hurt. So I ramped up my mileage my sophomore year, and I just started hitting like 85 a week, all summer long, like 10 weeks straight. And I saw huge improvements in that cross country season, where in high school, I quite honestly kind of sucked for being a 407 miler. Like, cross times in high school were not equivalent. And that was just my fault. I was just kind of a baby. But I learned how to get good at cross country in college, and I had a lot of success there. And I really started loving it because I was having so much success in cross country as opposed to the track season. But that overflowed into my sophomore year track season, where I was having a pretty good start my sophomore year, got a crazy stomach virus where I spent like 3 days in the hospital. Wow. I lost like 15 pounds. So indoor season was gone. Made a comeback for my outdoor season, slowly climbed out, ACC meet, didn't make the final, but ran 346 high. And I was like, hallelujah. I had a eye break.
I'm here. Yeah.
Finally, I got there. I am okay. I'm here now. We're going into junior year. I have some hope, right? So from that point, I run around the same volume, probably around 85 to 90, 95 a week. And I was handling the volume just fine at that point. Junior year, had a really good cross country season, my best cross season. I burned out a little early, but that's one of my biggest faults, is always just going too hard all the time. And so I burned out a little early, but had some good performances, ran like 70 something place at the Wisconsin Nutty Comb, ran low 24s pretty consistently.
Yeah. Nutty Comb's awesome.
Yeah. And all that cross translated again into track. Everything rolls on to the next season. Absolutely. And so that junior indoor season is where I really broke through and finally got where I wanted to be. So I ran 403 at our Mayo Mile Invitational, and ran 403 like 4 more times that season because I couldn't get under that. And then had a pretty solid season. And then that outdoor season, I think I got hurt that outdoor season. I don't even remember what it was. I think I had a quad issue, but didn't make it through that outdoor, but had a good indoor. And then senior year, the theme of me going too hard comes back. I went to Flagstaff with my teammates. We had a new coach. I'm stubborn. I'm mad. I just think I can work hard through everything. And as a coach, that's something I do not do at all. I learned a lot from my mistakes. And so I was like, new coach. Like, I liked our new coach. He's great. He's coaching at Tennessee now. But I was like, screw this. I'm going to get good no matter what. So we went to Flagstaff, had an awesome time there. And I was just rolling like 100, 105 mile weeks.
Oh my God.
All summer long. I was an August All-American. which means nothing.
And as a 21, 22-year-old, you think you could do anything, right? You know everything. I'm a real adult. I'm about to be a college graduate. Like, you know it all.
Yeah, I knew nothing. And I burnt myself out so hard that I had to shut it down for like a week. Every single run was miserable. My sleep got all messed up. Like I was so scared I'd give myself a hormone issue. I don't think I did, but like everything changed after that. Once I burned myself out that bad, everything kind of changed after that. Still to this day, that was youth, and then I got old after that in terms of athlete.
At least you learned your lesson,
myself
right?
so bad there. And so I ran like crap my whole senior year cross country, which was very disappointing because I was a leader on the team and I really wanted to set the example.
Yeah.
But I rested hard after that, ran 4:04 that indoor season with my teammates and didn't PR that indoor, but honestly had a better indoor season because me and my teammates got 4 guys to the conference final. And that was a huge moment for our team. And our coach, she was very excited about that. And they only take 10 to the final indoor, and we had 4 Notre Dame guys in there.
That's incredible.
As the leader on the team and have my underclassmen there with me, pulling us all along. And that was a very, very special moment that I look back on. And that outdoor season at Stanford is where I was flying high. And then I ran 3:43 in the 1500.
Awesome.
And unfortunately, a little later that season, I was dealing with some hamstring issue. And I couldn't quite train the way I wanted to. So I was just kind of like going a little bit down. So I didn't get to finish the season, but I still got to run at the regional championship for the first time ever and get to close it out in a good way.
And that's such an awesome, career. I want to jump in real quick. Darren Peters has a question for you. One of our frequent watchers. Darren, we love that you watch us all the time. But what was the pace of Easy Miles under all 3 coaches? Now, it seems like you didn't listen. But what was their goal? Like, what were they trying to get you run under all 3 of them? What was their goal pace for Miles?
The answer is going to be so unsatisfying because they didn't tell us what pace to run.
Right. They just said run 30 minutes. I mean, even high school level, you'll say easy, but everyone's easy is different. Yeah. Or
you kind of group people up, right? It's like, I expect this group to be a little bit more. This group, you guys take it a little easy. If you're up running with X, Y, and Z, we know you're running too hard. But so did you guys discipline yourselves, as a team? Like, did okay, for this 9-miler, let's not go under, this is an easy day. Let's keep it 7 minutes. Let's keep it 6:50. Let's keep it
for the most part. And people kind of judge that.
Our legs. Yeah.
Yeah. People judge that themselves. My freshman year, I was having like a minor panic attack because my freshman year, we probably ran the slowest mileage. A lot of our mileage was like 7 to 7:30. And this is Indiana. It's not hilly. So we just kind of ran slower, but we ran a lot more. And I was freaking out because in high school, a lot of times, I only ran like 50 miles a week, but I was running like 6:15 to 6:30. Oh, yeah. And so I'm like, I'm going to get slow. And so I was freaking out a bit. But then once I bought
You'll get strong.
Yep. We got strong, did a lot more mileage. It all worked out in the end. And then as I grew up into an upperclassman, 6:40 is really where we fell most days.
Yeah.
And some days were easier. Some days we pressed a little bit. And I would say more long runs than not, we pressed. And if I can take one memory from Notre Dame that I think back to, it's the long runs. I feel like that is where I went from boy to man in terms of athlete. It was the long run. Even for a middle distance guy like myself, getting out there running 16 to 18 miles, hitting a 4-mile tempo in the middle at 5 flat pace was man making. And we did that most Sundays. And so that's the big piece that I impart on my athletes. Like, even if we're not hitting this long run hard, that long run's the most important day of the week, in my opinion, even if you're an 800 runner. So in terms of to answer Darren's questions, we didn't really get most of it, but probably around 6:40s and those long runs, we typically hit pretty hard. Again, if you need an easy day, you didn't have to go with it, but there was always a group going hard. And if there was a group going hard, I was going to be a part of it, right? For good or for bad. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did on Sunday.
So quick question before you jump in there, Dave.
Good.
Call out the guy? Was it you? But who was the guy in the last mile dropping a sub-5? Was it you pushing that?
No, I wasn't the 5K, 10K guy. Those guys dominated the long run. It was Mike Clevenger. Good friends with Mike Clevenger to this day, but man,
there's always a guy that last mile they're just like, let's go. And it's like, no, we promised not to do this today.
There's Mike Clevenger and Jake Kildew, and those guys would crank. And then it was myself and usually Kevin Pulliam hanging on the back, like motivating each other, like, come on, Kevin, we can hang on, we can do it. And that's how Kevin and I got a lot better. And those guys just dropped they hurt us on every long run, but it worked.
That's awesome.
By the way, I want to thank Darren. He is our go-to and really helps us out. Like, he was helping us figure out who, if Justin or Capers was going to qualify. So thank you for all of your help and
he has a cool Wikipedia page. I'll post it.
Figuring us out. Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge, and he really breaks things down to really help figure out who's going to be qualifying for the Olympics and all other things. He's awesome. So thank you, Darren.
Absolutely.
So Chris, so you finish up at Notre Dame. You do 4 years there, and then you have some eligibility left.
Yes. So I had eligibility left. I was planning on doing it at Notre Dame, but some weird things happened there. So I thought I had eligibility in cross country. Turns out, because I ran one race in New Jersey my freshman year, I didn't. So I find I don't have that eligibility.
If you went to college now after COVID, you'd have like 7 years left.
Just handing out eligibility. And I was trying to protest
this guy? I'm like, how is Matt Centrowitz running for Oregon this year?
No kind of way. So I didn't have that eligibility, and I didn't really have a master. Notre Dame is hard. Like, they can only help you so much getting the master. So I couldn't even get into the MBA if I tried and wanted to. I kind of talked to them, but the MBA counselor kind of nicely told me, you're not getting in. And I understood and got the hint.
Like, and they looked at you like, wait, where did you graduate from? Oh, you graduated from us? No shot. You're not Harvard. You're not Yale. You're not Oxford. You're not.
You're an athlete and your GPA is like, just okay. Nah, we're not.
Your GPA is only a 3.9. You don't have a weighted 4.0. Like,
so there was
another major. There was another major that just started as like a master's in nonprofit management, and they needed people, which was perfect. I needed a master's, so I was going to do that. Turns out they cut the program like months before it was going to start. I'm like, what the heck? Now I have nothing. So I only had eligibility for the second semester. So I was only going to compete during the second semester and be an undeclared grad student. Which is what only
part of winter and all of spring.
Yeah. So I was going to part of winter, the important parts of winter and all of spring. Yeah. So I lived in the track house. I worked in the vending warehouse at Notre Dame. So I got up at 6 a.m. to get into the warehouse, and I moved a lot of heavy stuff for like 8 hours and delivered it. A lot of water jugs, strongest I've ever been in my life. And then I tried to run after that, and it was miserable. And I was doing it on my own because I couldn't practice with the team. So things were in a pretty miserable shape. I couldn't practice with the team.
Was Coach Joe still there? Coach Capagni?
Yes, he was. And so I was frustrated at this point because I did not get along very well with the director at Notre Dame at the time. I won't mention his name, but they did not renew his contract. It's pretty well known. But here's the sprint hurdles guy. He didn't like me much. Actually, part of it was my long hair at the time. He didn't like the long hair. That's a whole other story for another time. But he didn't like me, so he didn't make me a volunteer assistant, which would have allowed me to practice with the team. Yeah. So I'm working in a warehouse, 6 a.m. to whatever, and then training by myself afterwards at Notre Dame with eligibility on the table. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm frustrated. So I called Decker. I'm like, Decker, I'm frustrated in this situation. Like, what can I do? Like, I don't know what to do now. And he's like, what about Monmouth? I was like, sure, they've got a 146 guy over there.
Oh yeah, Dylan was a monster.
Oh yeah. So I went into the office and I got a release. At the time, there was no transfer portal. I got a release to Monmouth. My coach thought I was crazy, but he allowed it. And I talked to Joe Compagni and we got things sorted. And I got my butt over there for one semester. And I competed for Monmouth for that winter and spring or indoor and outdoor season. And it was awesome. I wish I had more time with them. I regret nothing about my Notre Dame experience. That was a fantastic experience as well. I just wish I had more time with that Monmouth crew as well, because they were a very special team. So a lot of weird circumstances to get me to the point where I was at Monmouth. And the most asked question when I was at Monmouth from all the team was, why'd you come here? I had to tell them, like, listen, guys, you have something really special here. Like, forget about all the fancy backpacks and all that crap. You've got a really great culture and a really great family here. And I can see that. And you've got great coaches that care about you.
That
so take that for granted.
Was Allie Wilson there then? Or, second place in the 800? Shout out to Allie?
Yeah, so I know Allie
mile
Wilson
race?
very well. She lived in Atlanta for as long as I lived in Atlanta, running for Atlanta Track Club. So we hung out pretty often because we were on the same team at Monmouth. I'm good friends with her boyfriend Bernard. I just saw her at a friend's wedding a year ago. So yeah, I'm good friends with Allie. So that was an exciting ride.
Thank God Monmouth is out of the MAC. Honestly, you guys didn't belong there.
You're a MAC guy.
Damn good. I am a MAC guy being from Marist. You kicked our ass. You guys, outside of XC, where Iona was king, indoor and outdoor, and even Manhattan, Ryder, they were used to the ones competing for the championships. You guys just came and kicked in the freaking doors and dominated the MAC while you were there. And then it was all right, we'll go back to a more competitive conference. It's piss off.
So how did you run in that one semester at
He's a monster.
I ran pretty well. So I had such different coaching at both places. I went from very cross-country distance-based at Notre Dame, which is nothing wrong with that. But when I PR'd in the mile at Notre Dame, I never touched mile pace. It was threshold. It was great. I got really fit from that. At Monmouth, I didn't do a threshold. We hit speed. And that was great too, because I started dropping really fast times in the 800. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I still ran 403. So from this end of the spectrum and this end of the spectrum, I just ran 403.
You got stuck at 403, right? But your 1500 is equivalent to sub.
Right. It's 1500. Yeah. Well, it's 401.
Yeah.
It's close. And
343. So you're not running 17 seconds over that last 100. I've seen Chris Marco kick. You're not running 17.
Yeah, there's no way. You will be. The only thing I could see.
You're running 16.1 and you're running a 359.5.
Yeah.
I'll take that one.
There you go.
That. So
done. It was said here. It's done. You are a sub 4 minute mile. There you go. You and
a lot more at Monmouth, and that was good. Fun. I was this is my last semester. Put me in all the races. And they did. I had a blast. So at the MAC Indoor Championship, I ran the mile prelim. I ran the 8 prelim, and then I ran the DMR anchor. And then the next day, I ran the mile final where I got my butt kicked. I was pissed. I got my butt kicked.
Well, you have Iona guys going sub 4 that don't race all fucking year.
So
they
just I got played
attached and run a 358, and it's we hate you. And they're usually this
tall
guy from some Eastern European country.
Now they have the kid from Brick there who's doing really well.
Dilcher. Yeah.
Yep.
So then I ran the 800 and 4x8 because they had that too. So 6 races in 2 days, and I was all about it. And then the IC4A championship at Boston University was super fun. Got to run 4x8s up there. It was a blast. So got to race a ton at Monmouth and really get to contribute to a team where at Notre Dame, it really wasn't about the team at all. And it's not in those Power 5 conferences. Yeah. It's cross country or it's track. And it's not really about the team unless you are a cross country team or a track team. You don't have both of those things together. So it was nice to be able to contribute to a team in kind of a mid-major, if you will, conference.
So you're done with You're done with your eligibility at Monmouth. What was your thought process then? Were you wanting to keep running? Did you know that you wanted to get into coaching? What was that transition like? And did you want to keep going? And how did that all take place?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to keep going. I felt like I had unfinished business and I had more to give. I think that was ultimately right. I absolutely never thought I'd be a coach. I was not interested. Even as an athlete, I didn't care about how to do it. I just wanted to show up to practice and work. Don't tell me the other stuff. I don't want to know it. Just give me what we're doing. So I never thought I'd be a coach, but I was finishing out my master's degree there and still training. And then it came back to bite me that time. I said I didn't really get hurt. I started getting hurt, and really I had an ankle roll, and I rolled my ankle. I rolled my ankle a couple months later, and I rolled my ankle a couple months later, and that one felt like a gunshot. And so I had to get my ankle fully cut open. They had to reattach my ATFL and CTFL, those 2 ligaments, because they were snapped backwards.
Yeah, they weren't there on me either.
I'm so thankful to my surgeon who did a great job, and I can run to this day. But that took so long to recover from, and that took running out of the equation for a little while. So I wasn't thinking about running. I couldn't run for a year. And so I was finishing my master's. I was a graduate assistant. I was tutoring. I was doing all these things and really getting into finance and getting into my schoolwork because I didn't have running to get into besides helping out and coaching. And there was a day on a bus ride home. Don't know where we were coming from, but I'm talking to Coach Torello at the time and telling him like, hey, I've got this job interview here. Like, I'm looking at this finance job. I can live over here and do this and that. I was like, what do you think? And he just goes, oh, you're scaring me. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? It's like, I think you should try coaching. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I think you'd be good at it. I was like, you mean it? He's like, yeah. So I was like, all right, man. That was it. That was the end of the conversation. And at that point, I'm like, I'm going to try coaching because this man is my role model and he thinks I can do it. So I'm going to go try it. I'm going to do it. And so the opportunity at Emory University popped up at a very good timing in that summer and then Tom Sippy, who I see commented on here, knew a Lynchburg alum, knew the Lynchburg alum who was the director at Emory at the time. He helped me get the interview. One thing leads to another. Boom, I'm in Atlanta as their assistant coach there. And so my plan was to, once I recovered from this ankle surgery, start training with Atlanta Track Club because Dylan Capwell from Monmouth was there and Allie was there and Brianna Stratz was there. And I had Monmouth people there.
Yeah.
But what I realized quite quickly is like, there's no money for me, and that's totally fine. I wasn't looking for money, but I needed so much special care because my ankle, and I was a hassle. And as someone who was a coach, I'm like, I don't want to be a hassle on someone else.
Yeah.
And so then coaching started really taking off for me, and my priorities changed. I realized, what am I more fulfilled doing? Like limping through trying to run still, or coaching? And so coaching really took the main stage, and that's the direction I went. I still got into race shape because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it after such a big injury. And years later, I did. I got back down to like 347-ish. I PR'd in the 5K, actually. I went 14:25. Awesome. Never ran the 5K before. So I did get to that point, and then a hamstring injury knocked me out, and that was where I stopped competing competitively.
I mean, I get that. And, you know, it's just something I always say, like elite athletes like you, and definitely if your ankle didn't get hurt, I feel like you definitely could have had like a pro track, right? Like you could have went and trained out at Atlanta with those guys and girls and probably been pushed to sub 4 and go try and race with Dylan and get sub 150. Like you would have been right there because you had the drive, and that's a huge part of it. But I think you made a great decision because you talked to Dave, myself, coaching is one of the coolest things ever, right? When you're watching that kid struggle their ass off, you know they're training hard enough to hit whatever PR they want to get, and it's just not going. And then all of a sudden, boom, they hit it, and the first person they turn to find is you. It's one of the coolest feelings, right? Like you see that, and that kid hits his PR, and he's not looking for anyone else. He's trying to find coach. Where's coach? I did it, coach. I did it. Like, and you get, you get more excited. I felt like I got, more jacked up from any race, any championship I've won for seeing my athlete accomplish something as mundane as setting a PR at a random meet. Like it's such a cool feeling.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Once that happens, you're hooked on, you're like
drug. Yep, yeah. You want your kids to
better.
Be great.
I feel like I'm serving something greater than myself. And that's really why I stuck with
You're muted, Dave.
Sorry. I said, you could see why Mr. O'Leary and Hef did it for almost 40 years because every group is new and you build a bond and a relationship with every group of new incoming freshmen, and then you're with them. And it's hard to find that time of when do I leave? So they just stayed, and we were all better for it. But you're going to love coaching. I can tell from just talking to you that you have the proper acumen and patience, and just by some of the things that you said, how you've learned how the sport has evolved and changed, especially the whole distance running, like you need more rest now and things, but you're going to be great because you've learned so many things and you've had so many coaches. Not that that's always a great thing, but you could take some bits and pieces
somewhere.
Yeah. Listen, you could take bits and pieces from each coach and build your own training program and your own culture. And it's just going to be great. I love seeing all the kids who were really good get into coaching because you can see the sport from a whole different side. See that it's not always as easy as it might have been for someone who has natural talent. How much work that some of these kids have. Not that you guys don't put in work because you always do, but the fact that they have to put in work and not see the times get fast is hard as a coach, but you're going to see just great drive from these athletes and you're just going to love it.
So you're over at Emory as an assistant coach, right? And then you have an opportunity to become a head coach at Wittenberg over at the cross country program. Still an assistant in the distance side with track and field, right? What was the jump, right? Because I was an assistant coach for a little bit at Marist College. So I didn't handle, I helped out. I, did some, ran some of the workouts and things like that, but never really heavy on the recruiting game. Would look at people and things like that, but didn't go do all the heavy stuff. What was it like jumping into being a head cross country coach? And now that's all at your table, right? And talk a little about Wittenberg. What is, what division are they? What is their conference? Kind of pitch them a little bit. Let's go pitch them out on this over here. Why should people go to Wittenberg and run for you?
So Wittenberg is a small liberal arts college in Springfield, Ohio. Very pretty campus, beautiful school, student population of around 1,500. Nice. What I call it is it's got D1 facilities. We have a 300-meter brand new track built in 2019. That's the only one in Division III, 7,000 square foot weight room. That was much nicer than Division I's I've seen. It's all brand new. They pour a ton of focus into the student athletes there because the student athletes perform in the classroom as well, and they make great alumni too. So it's a smart investment on the school's part. But close family-knit culture of the team. The women's program just won 6 straight conference titles, cross, indoor, outdoor, cross, indoor, outdoor. Men, in my first year there, these guys have been in the gutter of the conference for the past 20 years. I mean, last or second to last. And we got 3rd this year in cross. Nice. And next year, they were the favorites to win it with one other school. They won the indoor conference championship. They got 2nd in the outdoor conference championship. So the programs are on the rise. They have a great coaching staff around me. Our director of track and field, our throws, our jumps, our pole vault, they're all great people who all prioritize the culture. And that is where it all begins and ends, is a culture. It does not matter how talented your athletes are. It doesn't matter what your resources are. If you don't have the culture to build upon a successful team, you won't have anything in no time flat. So it is an amazing culture there. What I say to athletes, why Wittenberg? Come for the facilities and all the nice, fancy, shiny things, right? But then stay for the culture and the people. You're going to have coaches that are experienced and have coached a lot of All-Americans. All of our coaches on staff have had All-Americans, even some national champions in there. And then the family-like environment of the team. These kids care more about that team than anything in the world. I never have to worry about someone being late because they're all at the practice half an hour early. I'm like, why are you guys sitting here a half hour early? We just want to hang out with each other. And I love that. That just means we've done our job as coaches and building that culture. But that's a little bit about Wittenberg and everything. And I thank you for putting up our Instagram handle there. Of course, and then you asked a question.
I want to go there now. I am pumped after what you just said. I'm whew.
Do you guys accept 10-minute milers? Because I think that's where I'm at right now.
We can work with it.
10-minute milers with a torn meniscus, bad knee, bad ankle that probably will never get sub 10 again. But no, that sounds awesome. And we've talked about over at USATFs, there's some D3 studs that were there. Nick Simmons comes to mind. He was the greatest 800-meter runner for about a decade for America, and he was a D3 800-meter national champ, I think 3 years in a row. So it's you don't have to go big time D1. You don't have to go D2. You can go D3, have a lot of success there. Go to places too for education. If this school has amazing education and their athletics fit, you could see Coach Marco here is hungry. He wants to run well. He wants national championships. He wants all these types of things to come to Wittenberg. So if you're going to go run XC for a guy that competed at the highest level at Notre Dame, competed at one of the best schools in the the Northeast in Monmouth, he understands how to be great, and he's going to train you guys like a bunch of Division I athletes anyway. So don't if you're an athlete right now and you're not getting those big time looks, don't be ashamed to go to a D3 because it's still a job. It is a freaking job when you get there and you're going to work your ass off. So
these D3 athletes do not work any less hard than D2, D1, JUCO, and AIA. Exactly. So what I tell kids all the time is pick the right fit for you, school and team. Pick the right fit. That's all that matters in the end. And I'm kind of unique in coaching that most D3 coaches were D3 athletes. There aren't many D1 athletes who go and coach in D3 because frankly, a lot of them have their heads up their butt and they think that D3 is worse, and it's not. I have opportunities to move up to D1, but I really enjoy being in D3 because I can give so many more kids opportunities to compete, to train, to race when they might not have had those opportunities before. And you're seeing guys and girls that are going to D5 or D1 Power 5s now and doing their 5th years, when if they went to that school to start, they might have gotten blown out the back and never made it. But because they went to a program that was the right fit for them at the time and had people that lifted them up around them that were right for them, that's how they become the best that they can be, not going to the best program. Yeah. So just because NAU wins national championships, that doesn't mean that's the best training for you.
Right.
Just average Joe, because you got to get the doors blown off.
Yeah.
Plus, you get those athletes there that are there for the love of the sport. You know, they don't have that full scholarship pressure that they put on themselves. They are there because not that they don't put pressure on themselves, because they absolutely do, but they are there because their love for the sport. And that's something that, as a coach, that's half the whole battle there, is to get them to love what they're doing.
And one of the big things I always looked at when it came to like that is you look at nationals every year from D1, D2, D3. Yeah, your D1 people are probably running faster, but it's not by much.
There's just more depth.
You're getting your 800-meter champion maybe in D1 running a 147. You're getting your D3 guys running 150, 149. So it's not like they are like they're not that far off. When you get like, if you can get to that level, you're just as fast. Like you guys, just have more
depth in D1. You'll have more kids running faster, but the actual times are not that. I mean, look at D2. I mean, look at like Adams State. Those guys they're
incredible. Yeah, D2 is like the most like untapped potential in the country. Like it really is. But I digress. So before we're going a little long, but I'm fine with that. I'm cool. We're going long because I'm having fun right now. But what were the challenges that you faced coming in there now, bright-eyed, young head coach, right? Going and taking over the XC program. How much did your director and stuff help you in terms of learning how to properly recruit and things like that? Because it's a lot more than just showing up and being like, hey, kid, come here. Like there's a lot that goes into it in terms of knowing how to meet and talk to families. And
there's rules and
there's rules and all that, going through the NCAA seminars and, staying on top of it, right? Because there's always a new one every year. There's always something that they want to tell you in the NCAA. So
at least he doesn't have to worry about the NIL though. I don't think at a D3. So that's good.
So what was that like, kind of learning the ropes on, going from assistant coach, not having all those responsibilities, to now like, this is my baby. I got to know all of it. So what was that like, that transition?
Well, actually, the difficulties were elsewhere. During my 4+ years at Emory, I was very fortunate that I got to do all of that work that I needed to do as a head coach.
That's awesome.
So I recruited my butt off at Emory and built a mid-D group from nothing that just had 2 149 guys this year. And so I did lots of recruiting. I got to coach my own athletes. And that's not something that the director at Emory had to do, but he gave me a shot and allowed me to build my own group and coach. And that's something that I would not have gotten in D1 job. They would have said, go do the paperwork, right? But I got more opportunity just as the athletes do. And so I got to coach, I got to recruit, I got to manage and do, the food orders and stuff that you don't want to do, but you have to do.
The meal money and all that.
Exactly. So I rolled into there having training-wise, administrative-wise, leadership-wise, team management-wise, feeling extremely prepared. And the director at Wittenberg was super helpful. He's Paris Hilliard. He's built an amazing program over there over the last 12 years, and he's been extremely helpful to me transitioning. But I had to earn the trust of these kids.
Of course.
Because they weren't on board at first. But I tell you what, they weren't. I had to tell, a big part of it, for example, was the ladies ran 8 to 8:30 pace every day. And that's not how it rolls with me all the time. So I had to gently nudge them to start running their daily mileage a little quicker over time. Yeah. That took a while, and they didn't like it at first, but I had to stick with it because I knew what my goal was at the end of the day.
You were confident in your
everybody is super bought in. Our ladies run between 7 flat and 7:30 now every day comfortably, not forcing it, comfortably. And now they trust because they all PR'd this year. We got people at nationals. They're all healthy. And so now I had the total buy-in. But man, I was given this isn't something I do every year, but I sat everybody down. I gave them a presentation on this is how training works. This is why we're doing it. I'm not going to do this for you all the time, but as a grace for you as coming into your program, this is why we're doing it. Now you got to get on board and trust me. If you don't get faster, then you can come back to me, but you got to trust me.
That's great though. Hey,
yeah,
that's awesome.
That was the biggest challenge, was earning everybody's trust, but it's just because they care a lot. And so now that I have it, I am ecstatic with the position I'm in. But I'm trying to think other challenges. But I mean, my coaches, my directors, the other assistants around me are all fantastic. The support, the facilities, the ability to travel to meets, all great. But yeah, that was the most challenging part, was earning the trust of the team, because I know how to ride the line of kind of laying down the law without being a jerk, right? But sometimes the athletes still think you're a jerk, and you got to work through that, and that's part of managing a team. But I had to earn their trust and their respect, and I'm somebody who I believe very deeply that I cannot ever demand respect. I have to earn it.
Yeah,
and you have to work towards that. It's more work to earn respect than just try and tell them, like, just shut up and do it because I said so. You got to earn the respect. It has to go back and forth. And once you do that, then you can really build on your team and row the boat in the same direction. So that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, athletes could tell if you care as a coach. They really can. And 100%. That really helps too, because we've all those coaches that, especially in like high school and stuff, like some of them are there because they needed to fill shoes. They're getting a stipend, and kudos to them, because if shoes don't get filled, programs potentially get cut. So they're necessary, right? But it's like, you could tell when that coach is there and they are passionate and they're trying to get better while making you better. And they genuinely care. They're not there. You're not just another result. They care about you. How is your fitness feeling? How are you? Do you need a break today? How have you been eating? How you been sleeping? Are you in a relationship, and is there a break? Like, what do I need to know about you and your life as well? Because, that goes through. And the high school is a little touchier, but you're dealing with adults in college, and it's like, okay, you've been off. Like, what's going on? Like, you can have those relationships, and that's, like I mentioned with the coach, like in Notre Dame with you. The coach is a super important part. So was that played a little bit of a role in the kind of coach that you become now, where you kind of had those three different coaches over at Notre Dame? Have you wanted to just be kind of that steadying force, that consistent individual that these athletes can turn and look towards, which is something you didn't necessarily have for your 4 years at Notre Dame?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I have great coaches all along the way, and they've done great things. But where I take most of my coaching, I'm not even talking about training at this point, because training, I just do research. I don't do what I did in college. I do my own research and try and do what makes most sense, right?
Yeah.
I stay bias free. But I think, what from each coach would I have liked to have seen differently? And then I put that on paper, and I make sure that I enact steps to address that. And so
fantastic.
Those are things I do. And I had a lot of coaches, and a lot of great coaches, but there's some things about every coach, and I'm sure there are absolutely things about myself that my athletes can also make a list about, right? But I try to, from all of my coaches, think, what did I want to see differently? What would I have done differently to be better? And try and enact that.
Yeah, and that's smart to always keep growing, and to assess yourself in a very honest manner. Don't fill your head with, I'm great, I know everything, everyone else is wrong. Like, always consistently test yourself and take inventory on what you're doing and on your own self, and that always helps.
Yeah, I get it wrong sometimes. Absolutely. I try to minimize the amount of time.
We all do. Yeah.
Like, that's how you get better. And I appreciate 100%. My early on athletes dealing with my fieriness sometimes. Like, I wasn't always so patient and amicable and knowing how to deal with things the right way. That took some time, especially when I was frustrated as a younger coach, still a young coach, but in those early days. But luckily, I still have very, very good rapport with them. But that's just an example of, you got to learn over time. Just as you go from 4 years of graduation, I, as a coach, have to kind of graduate through those steps as well.
Absolutely.
And, and the great coaches have their core foundational beliefs that can change, but they're granted. You have to really chip at them, right? But it's the peripherals that you have to be willing to change with, right? Because we're all distance runners here. Distance runners are very different from each person. You could run 80, 90, 100 miles. I couldn't. My body wasn't strong enough. If I was going 50, 60, that was probably my limit. Dave, you had a limit as well. And we all needed to be coached a little bit differently. No two athletes are the same. And that's in track and field in general. Yeah. So it's like, you have to have kind of a core belief that can change over time, but it's difficult. And then everything else is, subject to change, right? According to the athlete, according to the team, according to the need, right? Because you could have a plan in XC season and you're looking at it and they're plateauing and it's like, this isn't championship season. We need to keep going. It's like, all right, got to shift something here. My plan isn't getting them to keep where I want them to rise. So being flexible is, of course, massive. And you have the demeanor and the drive. I could see it still.
It's evident.
It's not that drive for wanting to be a great athlete as now the drive to be a great coach. And the only advice I can give as an old man that has coached, and with Dave too coaching, work your ass off, but don't go crazy. Like, don't drive yourself neurotically nuts. You're going to have, again, successes and failures. And, it's hard, right? Because you're trying to do your best for these athletes. Try not to drive yourself crazy. Don't have a mental breakdown over it. Things happen
through the years in which knocks out most college coaches. I've surpassed that. So I've conquered most challenges. I feel good about that. I feel like I've braved the storm for most part.
I love it.
Ask veteran coaches. There'll always be another one.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Never not a headache.
Every day is a different day.
Absolutely. So, Chris, thanks so much for coming on, man. We appreciate it. Oh, the last thing we want to ask you, where we ask everybody before we get out of here, one of our big goals, you heard in the beginning, we talked about, we kind of gave ourselves a humble brag talking about all the athletes at USATFs. We talked about Eric getting a sponsorship. One of our big things is we want to try and help facilitate change in the sport, right? Because you were thinking of going pro, but you probably at that point knew the reality of going pro means going broke, working my ass off on a second job to be able to try and live out my dream, right? One of our goals is for that to not happen anymore. It's the choice of going pro and, okay, I'm in the lower league. I'm not a fast guy. I'm still going to make $150,000 a year, right? We want to get our pros to that point. So what is one thing that you would do, being a person that's been in the sport, if you had a wand and you could wave in, poof, that you would do to change the sport to get more casual fans involved that would then bring that cash flow over to our athletes? It's a big question, I know.
This is a tough question for me. It's going to make me sound like such a dunce, but I'm such a bad track fan. Like I'm a bad track fan.
Pete Colezo actually is like, I don't mind track. I just don't pay attention to it.
I didn't watch. I don't watch. Trials. I hate this, but I didn't watch any of the trials.
Really?
I didn't mean it that way. I was on vacation in Orlando, and then I was in Louisiana and like a bayou this past weekend.
You were doing your thing. Well, you missed
Allie, he doesn't mean it. Allie, he doesn't mean it.
Sorry, Allie. I sent you a text.
He watched the women's date, Allie.
But I guess for me, is there any well-watched sport that there's not a ton of money in? Right?
No, that's the problem.
There has to be a ton of money, but like lots of people buy athletic shoes and attire. So can it be coming from clothing companies? I don't know, but it's got to be an investment. I mean, I feel like there has to be a lot of money, and this seems like a cop-out answer, but
no, you're not wrong.
Money's so we have had so many great suggestions, but I really think that since we've started this podcast about a year and a half ago, there's been some real positive changes, like just this week, and just the overall anticipation and excitement about the Olympics and just about track seems to be at an all-time high. And I think seeing how well that the U.S. team should do in this upcoming Olympics, and not just your Noahs and your Sids, but your Grant Fishers and your Hobbs Kesslers and your,
watching out for that ladies 100-meter hurdle group. That's a brand new group. How
about the men's 100-meter hurdle? How about the men's 110? The first time we've ever had 3 people under 13 in the same, like America. And then you think, well, like what event do we not have a chance to at least fight for a medal? And I don't know.
I think we have medalers in almost everywhere. Maybe jav, because jav we're still picking up there in the men's side, but our jav leader is right there. He has the Olympic.
We've had years where like there wasn't an American in the distance from 15, 5, 10. There wasn't an American. Now, I mean, Grant Fisher's there. He's been 4th. He's been 5th. I'm like, we have got. It's just so fun to see.
A 142 can get you a place.
Yeah.
It's like, we're in a good spot.
And you got to think, why? Is it because those athletes were given more opportunities because there was more funding? I don't know the answer to that question.
I think there's more meets. I mean, track has always been one of the most sport where more kids do it than almost any other sport.
Yeah.
But that wasn't translating into college and pros. Now I feel like we're keeping a lot. And
to Chris's point, though,
social media is really helping too.
People are holding more meets because they think they're going to make money. You don't host a meet to break even. You host a meet to get entries, sell some stuff, and make money. So to Chris's point, that I'd never thought of it that way. But with more meets and more opportunity, it definitely seems like we're trending in that direction of making more money, right?
And I think having like Hoka and now you have I don't know if you saw the trials. Now they have Zendaya doing all their commercials. She's their spokesperson now.
Spokesperson.
So like it's. Where I work as a teacher, so many men and women have Hokas or Ons, and they don't even know anything about running. They wear them because they're comfortable shoes. So just the fact that you see more and more people wearing these track shoes as regular everyday shoes is only helping.
And Chris, I think you just hit like Occam's razor, right? The most logical explanation is probably the best answer, right? How do we make it better? Money. And I like that answer. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on, man. We appreciate everything.
Chris, it is an honor to have someone from my past high school doing such wonderful things. Not only watching you run and your journey on the actual track, but just talking to you now and just seeing the passion and the love that you have for your athletes, and that this sport has given you so much and that you're giving back. That's why we do this show. Yeah. It's just incredible to see, and you make all of us at South extremely proud. Thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been a fun time going down memory lane and kind of really rewalking the steps I took to get to where I was at, because sometimes I forget how wild that's been and how I got to where I'm at. So it's been so fun, so appreciative of the Toms River South Alumni Network, and it seems to be so strong and still going strong. So thank you so much for having me on.
And that is our whole goal, is to give you guys a chance to talk about yourselves, because you guys are such amazing athletes and even better people, that this is our pleasure.
And I can tell right now, you're going to do great things at Wittenberg. And like you said, you're going to have more opportunities. And whether you stay at Wittenberg and make them a D3 juggernaut or move on to go to, bigger schools or things like that, I can just tell you're going to be successful. So I have to say this: when you are a successful major national caliber, national champions coach, we also want you back on so we could talk a little more. And we plan on doing this show, up until we're both old and decrepit at this point. So it's like, we'll see you in 10 years when, you're now one of the people that Citius Mag is interviewing every week because they have a new guy doing something or new girl. So yeah, we're excited to get you there, but we're pumped. And thank you for coming on once again. Wittenberg XCTF, at @Wit_XCTF on Instagram. Go support them there. If you're a prospective athlete, get in touch with Coach. How do they get in touch with you? Do you have an email?
Yeah, they can go on our athletics website under track and field. There's a recruiting form. If they drop a recruiting form with some basic information, then that's the best way to get in touch. Or on our website is also my cell number and email.
Definitely. So go over there, get in contact with Coach, give him a little bit about yourself. So, recruit yourself. And again, and quick before we go, if you're an athlete, market yourself. Market yourself. Biggest thing you could do. Just because you're not getting looks doesn't mean a coach doesn't want you. They might just not know you're there. So market yourself. Send your things out. You never know. Anyway, we're talking in ovals. We appreciate everyone that watched, everyone that's going to listen, everyone on YouTube, X, Facebook. Thank you all so much. We will be back next week. We will have another fun and exciting show. And yeah, bye, everybody.